The CIA knew that it was breaking, every moral, ethical, and legal law in the books.
December 1952, New York City.
We're at the New York State Psychiatric Institute, 168th Street, Manhattan.
A 42-year-old man named Harold Blauer checks himself in.
And he's a former professional tennis player. He played Bill Tilden in the U.S. Pro Tournament in 1935. Now, for the 95% of you who don't know who that is, Bill was actually pretty good.
The 95%. But his marriage had just ended. He was depressed. He has a daughter named Elizabeth.
He's told that the Institute can help him, so he signs the mission papers with a flourish.
5 weeks later, on the morning of January 8, 1953, at 9:53 a.m., a doctor at the Institute injects Harold Blauer with 450 milligrams of a chemical agent called EA-1298.
Now, EA-1298 is not a treatment for depression.
No, EA-1298 is a chemical warfare compound, a mescaline derivative manufactured by the United States Army Chemical Corps, provided to the Institute under a classified contract.
Always classified. No one walking the earth has ever taken 450 milligrams of it.
And they're guessing.
Now, at 9:57 a.m., 4 minutes after the injection, Harold Blauer becomes restless. He's agitated. The nurses restrain him, and not for anything good.
Now he sweats, he convulses, he flails, he froths at the mouth.
At 12:15 p.m., Harold Blauer is pronounced deader than disco.
2 hours and 22 minutes after a doctor pushed a chemical warfare agent into his arm at a hospital where he checked himself in for a broken heart.
The death certificate said he had a sudden cardiac event. They just don't say why.
It would say that for the next 22 years.
His daughter, Elizabeth, was just 11 years old.
Welcome to Mugshot Mysteries. I'm Kathryn.
And I'm Gabriel.
This is part 2 of our series on MKUltra, and we're calling it The Names.
Last week, we told you about poor Frank Olson.
And this week, well, we tell you about everyone else.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass. We'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know.
Last week in part 1, we said MKUltra had 149 subprojects. The CIA destroyed the records in 1973, most of them. Sidney Gottlieb gave the order, and trucks pulled up at Langley, and boxes were burned.
What we know because the financial files were stored in a different building. Because accounting is always the last to go.
Correct. And 20,000 documents survived. Mostly receipts, mostly money.
So no names, no patients, no subjects, no bodies, none of the experiments.
Just dollar amounts.
Tonight, we're going to give you the names that did survive. The ones we know about because they sued. Because lawyers are timeless and tireless. But the names also survive because they didn't and the families got loud enough.
And each of these stories is one we know.
Multiply each one by an unknown number and you have a program and a lot of ghosts still floating around. Graveyard after CIA graveyard of them.
Truth. Now let's take you to the café. It's October 1952 in Paris, France.
A young American is sitting in a cafe, and we'll try to say this correctly, called the Café Select on Boulevard du Montparnasse. The name makes sense when you see who's going to be sitting there.
His name is Stanley Milton Glickman. He is 26 years old, and he's from New York. He is studying to be a painter, so he's been in Paris for about 3 years.
He is, by every account, a happy young man at the start of his artistic life. He has talent. He has friends, he has time. He may have a liberal arts degree and a bunch of student debt. He is Mr. Bohemia.
I like it. Well, that night at the Café Select, he gets into an argument with a group of Americans at the next table about politics, the Cold War, communism, same old.
The argument is friendly enough, but the Red Scare never sleeps, and that night ends with one of the Americans offering to buy him a drink to make the peace.
Stanley orders a chartreuse.
He drinks it.
And 20 minutes later, his hands begin to shrink.
That is what he tells the doctors. But Rick Moranis was nowhere to be seen. He looks at his own hands and they're getting smaller still. Then they're bigger. Then they're smaller again. It's like a reverse Cialis commercial for the hands.
And the room won't stop moving. Light is sound, sound is color. He cannot really tell where his body ends.
He is taken to an American hospital in Paris. They can't help him. Whatever's in his system is more off-label than Hydrox.
He goes home to his apartment and he stays there.
For 10 months, Stanley Glickman does not leave his room. He can't eat solid food. He cannot read. He cannot tell what time of the day it is. He believes he's dying, and I agree too. He thinks the walls are alive and the world is ending. Again, I'd have to agree with him.
He never paints again.
He's brought back to New York by his sister Gloria. She takes him into her home. He lives there, mostly inside, for almost 40 years like a recluse.
In 1981, after the Rockefeller Commission report comes out, and after a former CIA officer publishes a memoir mentioning operations in Paris cafes in the early 1950s, Stanley Glickman files a lawsuit against the United States government.
He claims he was dosed with LSD at the Cafe Select by MKUltra operative.
And the case drags on for 18 years.
Sidney Gottlieb is finally deposed in his Virginia farmhouse 2 months before he dies in 1999. Of course, he denies everything. In a moment that's probably less surprising than a panda's dinner, he says he doesn't remember Paris.
Stanley Glickman dies in 1992 of a heart condition his doctors blame on the long-term effects of the trauma, and he never sees the case resolved.
His sister continues this lawsuit. In 1999, a federal judge rules that there's enough evidence to send the case to a jury.
It never gets there. The CIA settles in 2001, and the amount is sealed.
A young man went to a cafe. Someone bought him a drink. 40 years of his life ended at that table after just one high that he never came down from.
Walked out of the Cafe Select and into history without a name. A nameless, faceless man with no remorse who will just say he was following orders. Now, let's bring you to the man on the toilet. Yeah, it's not Elvis.
Yeah, man. I love that intro. Yeah.
The CIA wanted to know what LSD did to people who didn't know they had been dosed.
They could not run that experiment in a hospital for very Hippocratic and witnessy reasons.
Well, so they hired George Hunter White.
He is a federal narcotics agent, former espionage-based OSS. He's all of 5'7", but he's 200 pounds. He drank a fifth of gin a day like a grandma. He wore a giant ruby pinky ring, also like a grandma. He carried brass knuckles, maybe like a grandma. And for some reason, he kept a framed photo, ready for this? Of Adolf Hitler on his office wall.
Well, he told visitors the photo was there to remind him what evil looks like.
Sure, George.
Yeah.
That's why, bud.
Yeah. And in 1953, the CIA leased an apartment for him at 81 Bedford Street in Greenwich Village. They installed a one-way mirror and they wired it for sound. They told him to start dosing people. Whomever. Carte blanche on this bitch.
In 1955, they promoted him to San Francisco.
They opened a townhouse at 225 Chestnut Street on Telegraph Hill, then another one on Green Street, and then another one across the bay in Marin County.
They redecorated that Chestnut Street house like a brothel. Red curtains, tacky posters, a mirror bedroom, maybe a heart-shaped bed.
That vibrated?
With quarters, or maybe it was dimes back then.
Okay, it might not have vibrated, but it could have. But they decorated it that way because it was, in fact, going to be one.
And it wasn't a facade. At least the brothel-like activities weren't, because they hired sex workers. They paid them $100 a night, of course in cash. Plus, they gave them federal immunity from narcotics enforcement. The women's job was to go to a bar in North Beach, to find a man, and bring him back to Chestnut Street. This is like fishing with dynamite.
Well, sometimes she made the man a drink, and sometimes she handed him one. But either way, the drink was loaded.
And in the next room, behind a one-way mirror, on a portable toilet, in a Hawaiian shirt, with a pitcher of martinis on a folding tray, sat George Hunter White, all 200 pounds of him, the man with a picture of Hitler on his wall.
Taking note.
The CIA called the program Operation Midnight Climax, because Operation Morning Time Regret was taken.
I have so many things I want to say, I can't say them, and go. That was the name of the budget line. A real federal employee typed those words on a requisition form.
I want everyone to feel that name like the sex workers felt that.
You really want them to feel Operation Midnight Climax? Really?
Oh, some people really felt that operation. That's for sure.
Well, here's the thing. I need to know this. What did White see through the mirror?
Men hallucinating, men weeping, men begging, men breaking, men changing, men wanting to call their mothers.
That is sad. But one man, according to a surviving CIA memo, became convinced that the woman with him was his dead mother. And he cried for 90 minutes.
Which is sad. I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
It's so sad.
Yeah, that's sad.
I hate that.
They always want to call their mom. He wanted to admit something, you know what I mean? Like, Mommy,
No.
you always told me not to go with strangers.
Oh my gosh, carry on.
In another case, on that same memo says, a man described to her in detail plans to kill his wife.
Yikes.
Yeah. The CIA, they never followed up.
What the fuck?
They never warned his wife. They never contacted local police. Now, it could have been bluster, or it could have been a plan for next Wednesday after fondue. Who knows?
Well, the reality is they did not know who he was, and they did not know who she was. And they also never tried to figure it out.
Well, unsurprisingly, some of the men just passed out and were carried out of the apartment by White, and they just dumped them in nearby alleys.
And some woke up in their own beds the next morning, fully clothed, with no memory of where they had been or how they had gotten home.
And some, no one knows. There were no follow-ups. There was no medical care. There was no list of names. You gotta remember, White was more loaded than the server to buy Taylor Swift tickets.
The men who walked into that townhouse never knew what had happened. Some of them spent the rest of their lives believing that they had simply lost a day.
Some of them never lost that feeling. They told their doctors, they told their wives, something had changed in them that night, something that they never got back.
And they couldn't go to the police. They'd been picked up by sex workers. They were almost all married. Going to the cops meant explaining to their wives.
So the CIA built the perfect victim. This is a man who, given this situation, could not say anything had happened to him because some things need to be stuffed down with brown whiskey.
Oh, man. The safe houses operated for 13 years.
Estimates of how many men were dosed, they run into the hundreds.
That's just an estimate because the records were burned. And also, again, White was more loaded than a steakhouse baked potato. Now, ready for the next?
I'm ready.
We're going to call this the letter. In 1965, Operation Midnight Climax shuts down. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah, very disappointing. So, honestly, it's hard to keep a straight face. I know we joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lease at 225 Chestnut Street is finally terminated. The mirror is removed. The portable toilet, presumably, is thrown out and burned.
And White retires. He moves to a small town in California called Stinson Beach. He's 57, and his liver is, in his own words, shot.
Very surprising. And he sits down to write a letter to his old boss, Harry Anslinger. Now, Anslinger had run the Federal Bureau of Narcotics for over 30 years. He was the man who first put George onto Sidney Gottlieb in the early 1950s. I assume he's doing this all while drunker than a whole bachelor party.
Well, the letter survives, and it's in his own handwriting. And it's the closest thing we had to a confession from any single person who ran any single part of MKUltra.
I want to read verbatim the part everyone quotes. Then I want to read the part nobody does quote.
All right, first up. I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun.
Next one. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?
And that is a federal narcotics agent describing 13 years of his work to his former boss, the head of federal narcotics, as fun.
So, lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, pillage. It's like he was reading the Viking job description.
He listed the verbs.
He used the word rape in a letter to the man who ran federal narcotics enforcement. He's just describing his job.
The letter is signed. Pretty good stuff, brother. I mean, what the fuck?
Pretty good stuff, brother. He sounds like a ball player in a retirement speech. You know, the feedback coming through as admissions of rape, dancing through the rafters.
Oh, wow. White lives another 10 years, and then he dies of cirrhosis in 1975, 2 months before the Rockefeller Commission report goes public and the country starts to learn what he did.
He never faces one charge. He never sits for an interview. He never apologizes. He just drinks and drinks and drinks. The gin bottles piling higher than his liver's ALT counts.
And he keeps the letter as a trophy. Now, we move to Edgewood. The same years White was running the safe houses, the United States Army was running its own program.
This was an even bigger one.
The Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland, 45 minutes from Baltimore.
Let's go over it. Between 1955 and 1975, the U.S. Army, in collaboration with the CIA, brought more than 7,000 American soldiers to Edgewood Arsenal, and they tested chemical warfare agents on them. We'll let that one sink in as something so shocking, yet very predictable, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. The soldiers were told that they were volunteering for tests of military equipment. You know, new gas masks, new uniforms, new protective gear.
And that was a lie.
Correct. They were given LSD, sarin, VX, mustard gas, mescaline, PCP, a psychoactive compound called BZ that was, at one point, considered for use as a battlefield weapon to incapacitate enemy troops.
So, BZ produces effects that can last up to 4 days. It causes confusion and hallucinations, a complete loss of contact with reality. Soldiers dosed with it would attempt to dress themselves with chairs. They would salute fire hydrants. They would see people who weren't there. Look, it would be comical if it wasn't also tragic.
One soldier in a documented Edgewood test spent 6 hours convinced his commanding officer was a tree.
The Army filmed these tests. The footage is publicly available. You can watch it. You can find it on YouTube. You can watch a 20-year-old American soldier who joined up to serve his country lose his absolute shit on government film in 1964 while his superior officers laughed and laughed.
And many of the men signed forms. The forms were just boilerplate. They did not specify what was being tested. They did not include a list of the substances, and they did not warn of long-term effects.
They were soldiers. They were told to sign. They signed because that's what soldiers do when they're given orders.
The Army has, in the decades since, admitted that the program existed. They've admitted the substances. They have not, in any meaningful way, admitted the harm.
And there's been harm because, of course, there's been harm.
Exactly. Edgewood veterans have, in the years since, reported persistent neurological problems. You know, you've got chronic depression, tremors, memory loss, sleep disorders, personality changes their families say have lasted for decades.
Many have developed psychiatric conditions that did not exist before they walked through the gates of Edgewood Arsenal and the dark horrors of our own government.
A class action lawsuit on behalf of the Edgewood veterans was filed in 2009. It is still active in 2026. The Army has fought it at every single step. They argue primarily that they cannot prove a direct chemical to illness link decades after exposure.
Which is true. They can't at all.
Yeah, honestly, because the records were destroyed.
The Army cannot prove it caused harm because the Army made sure the proof was burned.
That is the whole structure of MKUltra in one paragraph. So now we're going to go to the inventory.
Let's do it.
While the safe houses ran, while Edgewood ran, the CIA was also doing other things.
I want to give you a partial inventory because the scope is part of the carnival of horror we call the CIA.
It tracks.
Indeed.
It tracks.
Yeah.
MKUltra Subproject 5, Hypnosis. A CIA officer named Morse Allen, working out of a basement office at the agency, ran experiments to see if a hypnotized person could be made to commit a crime that they would not otherwise commit.
Specifically, murder, because of course that's where they would take it. It was the Cold War. People needed murdering, Kathryn.
Yeah. In a 1954 memo, Morse Allen reports that he has successfully hypnotized a young female secretary into pointing a pistol at another secretary and pulling the trigger.
The pistol was unloaded, thankfully. And And the hypnotized woman did not know that, though. She thought she was finally getting rid of Judy from accounting.
When Alan woke her up, she had no memory of what she had just done.
When her colleagues told her, she didn't believe it.
They did this in an office to a real woman with real guns.
And it totally worked.
Subproject 119 funded research into electronic activation of the brain.
Specifically, whether the human brain could be remotely controlled by radio signals.
Now stop. I want to be careful here. The research did not produce a working brain control device. It produced years of expensive neurological experiments on rats, monkeys, and a handful of humans with inconclusive results.
But the question on the grant application, the question the CIA wrote down in their own handwriting was, and I'm paraphrasing, can we control a person remotely like a ring cam?
The fact that they couldn't is not the point. The point is that they tried.
Okay, so Subproject 84, 91, 94, and 99, variations of LSD distribution, because they had a hard-on for LSD that would take 3 math books and a double pair of drawers to cover up.
Oh my gosh, wow. Dude. Moving on. Subproject 53, polygraph development.
Subproject 35, construction of a chemical and biological warfare laboratory at Fort Detrick. Again, Fort Detrick comes into play. You cannot tell the difference from MK Naomi, which we're going to talk about in part 3.
And then there's the dolphins.
Please make sure everyone can hear that again.
Okay. The dolphins, Gabriel.
Okay, now tell us about the dolphins, because I love this story.
So the CIA, through Subproject 119, funded research at the University of Hawaii into the use of dolphins as autonomous weapons delivery systems.
Dolphins with explosives and murder in their heart.
Well, they do have rape in their heart, so it's not a stretch.
They're not innocent, guys.
Negative.
No.
The lead researcher was a man named John Lilly. He was studying dolphin-human communication. The CIA funded his lab on the condition that he also explore whether trained dolphins could attach magnetic devices to enemy ships.
Lilly later got into LSD himself.
Track.
He started believing dolphins were extraterrestrials. He built sensory deprivation tanks. The tanks he designed are literally the great-grandparents of the float tanks people pay for in Beverly Hills.
The same agency that was dosing strangers in San Francisco was simultaneously trying to weaponize marine mammals.
All through a researcher who would later become convinced that dolphins were aliens and shit, maybe he's right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And in the early 1970s, Sidney Gottlieb, late in his career, started a program that he called Operation Often.
I love these names. Operation Often was an exploration of the occult.
The CIA in 1972 was paying psychics, mediums, fortune tellers, and astrologers.
They consulted with practitioners of voodoo because, of course, they funded research into ESP, telekinesis, remote viewing. They sent operatives to spirit mediums to see if anything came through from the afterlife. They really just played all the greatest hits of the start of every horror movie in existence.
I tried telekinesis once.
How'd that work?
Well, I sat there for
Everybody
a long
has.
time staring at that paper, willing it to spin.
Or the remote control.
It didn't.
Yeah.
But somehow I still feel like I have power. A British woman who called herself a witch, her name was Sybil Leek, was famous in the 1960s for being a practicing pagan on American television. She was reportedly approached by the agency in this period, but she was also not the only one.
Whether the operation often produced any actual useful intelligence is completely debated. The records are, as you might expect, incomplete and probably cursed by a potpourri of the supernatural.
The point is that Sidney Gottlieb, by 1972, after 20 years of running the program, was so out of ideas and so unaccountable to anyone that he was paying witches.
The program had drifted from match the Soviet brainwashing threat to let's see if a seance can find Castro while we poke his little Castro voodoo doll with needles.
And nobody stopped him. All right, now I want to take you to a little French village called Pont-Saint-Esprit.
Population 4,000, southern France in the Languedoc region. Vineyards, a medieval bridge over the Rhone, the kind of village that looks like a postcard of a place you're too poor to go to.
August 16th, 1951, a Thursday.
People are just eating dinner, drinking local wine, going to bed.
That night, Pont Saint-Esprit goes mad.
I want to be careful with my language here for once. I'm choosing the word mad on purpose because that's what the survivors said. That's what the doctor said. That's what the police report said.
Hundreds of people in the village wake up in the early hours of August 17th in the grip of something that nobody can explain.
They hallucinate, they scream, they run into the streets. Some of them claim to see flames coming out of their hands like they're the Human Torch. Some claim their heads are made of metal. Some try to kill animals they believe are literally inside their own bodies.
A man tries to drown himself in the river. A boy attacks his grandmother, believing she's a creature. Several people throw themselves from second-story windows.
After all of this, 5 people are dead.
Dozens are committed to psychiatric hospitals, and some of them never came out.
The next morning, the village wakes up in complete ruin. People are wandering the streets in night clothes, weeping, unable to remember what they'd done.
The French police investigate, and the official explanation arrives pretty quickly.
Ergot, a fungus that grows on rye bread, and this is when the grain is improperly stored. Ergot contains lysergic acid compounds. It is chemically a cousin of LSD. A distant cousin, I might add. This is a kind of cousin that only shows up at the family reunion and talks politics the whole time.
We all have them.
Yeah.
The official story is that the local baker's flour was contaminated. Half the village ate a contaminated loaf, and half the village lost their minds.
That's the version they teach in textbooks. That's the version the French school children are taught. A loaf of bread made all these people crazy.
It's also the version that doctors at the time questioned, because the symptoms there did not match ergot poisoning. Ergot causes gangrene. It causes burning sensation in the limbs. The classic symptoms is what the medieval Europe called St. Anthony's fire.
The people did not experience that St. Anthony's fire. They experienced full-blown hallucinations. Visual, auditory, emotional, lasting hours. They sound like they were higher than Willie Nelson on a Tuesday morning.
And that is not ergot. That is a psychedelic.
And a big blunt. In 2009, an American investigative journalist named H.P. Albarelli published a book called A Terrible Mistake. Albarelli had spent 10 years investigating the death of Frank Olson.
And in those 10 years, while he was reading every declassified MKUltra document he could get his hands on, he found references to something called Project SP.
SP in the documents Albarelli reviewed refers to that 1951 field test conducted in southern France.
The same southern France, the same year, the same month.
Albarelli's claim, which she supports with declassified documents, interviews with former CIA officers, and even the chemistry-cleared analysis, is that the United States military, working with the Swiss pharmaceutical company Sandoz, sprayed a small French town with aerosolized LSD as a field test. Because, again, it's the Cold War, and it calls for any and all madcap experiments.
To see what would happen if you dose an entire civilian population at once.
And Kathryn, they picked a town with known mass poisoning history, so any aftermath could have just been blamed on the bread.
The CIA has officially denied this. Sandoz has officially denied this. And the French government has, you guessed it, officially denied this.
But the doctors who treated the survivors said in 1951 that what they saw was not ergot. These people know the difference.
A French government chemist named David Faglin, decades later, examined the original samples and said the symptoms were consistent with synthetic LSD exposure, not naturally occurring ergot.
Remember Frank Olson, the scientist we told you about last week? He traveled to Europe, guess when? In 1951. He visited Porton Down, the British biological warfare facility. He attended meetings about chemical and aerosol delivery systems. He was, by his own family account, deeply troubled by what he saw on that trip. The pieces connect like a Lego brick.
He came home and he started talking about quitting.
2 years later, remember, he's dead.
And that's the official story of Pont Saint-Esprit. It's bad bread.
The other story is that an American agency in peacetime sprayed a French village with psychedelic compounds just to see what would happen. Because they were little kids with a bunch of play toys, and those play toys were real people.
And 5 people died. Hundreds were institutionalized. A village never quite came back.
And the file, if it ever existed, was burned with the rest of MKUltra's records in 1973. We are telling you both versions exist, but one doesn't make sense to me. The other reeks like old CIA sweat.
Gross but accurate. And in the absence of the file, both versions will exist forever. And now, the dream. I want to end with something quiet and supernatural.
It's definitely a U-turn, but it's an interesting story. And we all love the supernatural, right?
Oh, yes. Well, I do. And if you don't, ugh.
Everybody loves supernatural. So last week, we told you about Frank Olson, the biological warfare scientist who went out that 10th-floor window at the Statler Hotel on November 28th, 1953.
Frank's wife was named Alice, and Alice had a younger sister named Anne.
Now, Anne lived in Frederick, Maryland. This is just 5 minutes from Frank and Alice's house.
On the night of November 27th, the night before Frank died, Anne went to bed early.
She woke up at 2:30 in the morning.
She would tell the story for the rest of her life.
She woke up because Frank Olson was standing at the foot of her bed.
And she could see him clearly. He was in a suit. He looked tired, and he looked sad.
He told her he had to go. He told her to take care of Alice. He told her to take care of the children.
And then he was gone.
Anne sat up in the dark. She thought she had been dreaming.
And 3 hours later, the phone rang.
Frank Olson had gone out that window of room 1018A at the Statler Hotel in New York at approximately 2:30 in the morning.
The same minute Anne woke up.
She would tell the story for the rest of her life, quietly, to people she trusted. Most of them did not believe her.
She didn't care.
She knew what she had seen.
And that is where part 2 leaves us.
Harold Blauer, dead at 42 in a hospital where he went for help.
Stanley Glickman, dead at 66 after 40 years in his sister's apartment.
Hundreds of men in San Francisco who lost a night and never knew why.
7,000 soldiers at Edgewood Arsenal who signed forms they could not read.
A French village that I believe was a field test.
And a dream in a small house in Maryland on the worst night of a wife's life.
Now, in part 3, we leave America entirely.
And we go to Montreal to a hospital called the Allen Memorial Institute, run by a man who was, on paper, the most respected psychiatrist in the Western world.
Who was, in practice, putting patients to sleep for weeks at a time, then playing recorded messages on a loop 500,000 times to erase a personality and then to rebuild it.
And his name was Donald Ewan Cameron.
And the patients he did this to, almost all of them were women. Many of them mothers like Velma Orlikow, who went for postpartum depression and came out unable to read.
Her daughter is in court right now in 2026, and the lawsuit is active.
So, part 3 is called The Sleep Room.
It is the worst thing this program ever did.
And it happened all to mothers.
I'm Kathryn.
I'm Gabriel.
This was Mugshot Mysteries. And if you like your history disturbing, your conspiracies heavily researched, and Gabriel saying things that make me audibly say, what? Rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss what's coming next. And follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Mugshot Mysteries Podcast. We're over there posting case files, chaos, and things that probably should stay classified. But before we go, per usual, Gabriel, what did we learn today?
Well, we've learned that the CIA sucks, first of all. We have learned that bad bread can really mess you up. But also, LSD can do way worse. We've learned that there was a drunk Hitler picture-having man on a porta potty watching LSD-dosed men climax through a two-way mirror, and this was just one of the most ridiculous plans the CIA had during that time period. And we have learned that when men are given permission, carte blanche, to look at people around them like lab rats, when there are no guards and no accountability, they can convince themselves that what they are doing is for the greater good. But it just seems that having power over another man gets them higher than any concoction of drugs they could ever conjure.
Sneaky footsteps in the night, clues that vanish out of sight. Grab your hat and magnifying glass, we'll talk this case and have a blast. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. ticking, the plot gets thick. We'll crack this puzzle quick as a click. Mugshot Mysteries, we're on the trail. Twists and turns that never fail. Laughs and chills, it's quite the show. Who did it? Tune in to know. Follow the breadcrumbs through the haze. Every clue's a piece in this crazy maze.